Hey, Steve Saretsky here. Just wanted to provide you with a little quick update on, the market, the Vancouver condo market or condo market in general. There's some stats that came out yesterday. There was at least a story by the Globe and Mail that I helped reporter Brent Jang out there with. Basically on the BC Home Partnership Loan Program. I've talked about this several times. I've done a couple of videos on it. It's essentially subprime lending from the BC government, which is subsidized by the BC taxpayers. Personally not a huge fan of the loan. I think it's an economic nightmare. It's really predicated on home prices rising. Is it a good program for first-time buyers? Yes, I think if you take advantage of it, obviously it's interest-free for the first 5 years as well as payment-free for the first 5 years. So you don't pay anything, and they basically lend you up to a 5% additional. So if you can't afford 20% down, you have to go less than 20% down. So basically, if you're putting down a 10% down payment, they'll match, up to another 5%, which would bring you up to about a 15% down payment. You can go as low as 2.5% down. So if you go to 2.5% down, they'll match you 2.5%. So now you're 5% down, and you're ready to buy a house. And essentially what happens is that mortgage gets tacked on as a second mortgage on your title. So what happens is in 5 years, not only does the principal need to start getting paid, but so does the interest. And I believe the interest is charged on your prime rate plus 0.5 point, something like that. So anyways, the thesis of it is essentially that it's terrible economic policy. For one, you're encouraging, really over-leveraged buyers to get into the market. People that CMHC, the Bank of Canada, are trying to discourage with the new lending rules from getting into the market. And the BC government is counteracting that and encouraging these people to get in the market. And so what happens is, let's say even a year or 2 years down the road, when these high leverage buyers cannot afford their payments, and they're only 5% down, if they go to sell and prices are even stagnant, there's really not a lot of equity in the home. So what happens is the banks, because they're number one on the title, they're going to get paid out first, and the BC taxpayers, the BC government, who's second on the title, is likely going to incur all the losses and not get paid back anything. That's even more escalated in a market that, say, declines, which, obviously, there's a strong possibility that Vancouver does have a correction here in the coming years for sure. Again, who knows how much that's going to be, but the big story is that you're encouraging people that are going to be over leveraged into the market, that maybe can't afford their payments if they lose a job, etc. There's really not a lot of equity in the home, and again, because you're the second on the title, you're going to be second to be paid out. So basically, majority of those losses are going to go to the BC government, which is us, everybody, the taxpayers. So it is essentially subprime lending. It's terrible economic policy from that point, but also from something I've talked to Tom Davidoff about a lot is you're adding more demand to a market that does not need any more demand. We already have a surplus of demand. We already have, at the time they implemented this for all of Greater Vancouver, the sales to active ratio was still around 40% for Vancouver condos, or condos in general. So basically, anything above a 20% sales to active ratio is considered a seller's market. So we're at 40, so we're still, obviously the condo market, yes, it cooled down from the fall into the winter, but it was still very much a seller's market. It was still extremely hot because you had extremely low inventory where people weren't selling. You still had quite a bit of demand in the market, and so we had still had a very hot condo market during the implementation, the announcement of this. So what it does is you're adding more stimulus. You're adding buyers that would not have been able to qualify, that would not have been able to purchase. You're basically giving them money to now get into the market. This is another way for them to get into the market. So you can say that you're helping these buyers, but ultimately when you create more demand, you're ultimately creating more and more bidding wars. You're pushing up the prices. So ultimately, the people who are going to benefit from this program is really, it's the sellers, because it's kind of a vicious circle. You know, you're giving people money saying, here, get into the market, but you're pushing up prices. You're not making it affordable for them. You're actually making it more unaffordable by pushing up these prices, by adding more fuel to the fire, by creating even more demand. And so, of course, as the new year has rolled on, we've seen that sales active ratio jump from 40 to right now it's at 55%. I can tell you by the time March is done, it'll probably be higher than that. You know, I've put out a report, you know, last week looking at the March sales so far. I think in Richmond, you know, Richmond and Vancouver East, you know, over 50% of condos have sold over asking price, are in multiple offers. It's close to 50% across the board, basically anywhere you go. So, you know, this market did not need more buyers. And so the recent data that just came out from the BC government released it, is 423 applications in Metro Vancouver have now been approved for this home loan program. I think they had something like 500 applicants, so they approved almost everybody, so 423 people. So you could say, you know, 423 people doesn't sound like it's going to make a huge dent. The thing is, the program started January 16th. That's when they started taking applications, so the time people get approved. You know, we basically have 2 months, so 423 applicants have been approved. We don't know how many of those have actually resulted in sales, but certainly if you're getting, you know, approved, there's a good chance that you're involved in the market. So whether you make an offer and you're unsuccessful, you know, that one other offer, it always has the ability to push prices up. So what I'm saying is, you know, maybe before you only had 2, maybe 3 offers. Now you're getting 4, maybe 5, because of those extra buyers that are coming in. And ultimately, you know, the more offers you get, generally it pushes prices up higher. You know, are you going to pay more when you hear a property has 2 offers on it? Or are you going to pay more when you hear a property has 6 offers on it? You know, I typically advise my clients, you know, if you're in a multiple offer situation with 5 or 6 offers, it's a totally different story than, you know, if you're competing with 1 or 2 other people. So it tends to push prices up, obviously, the more demand that you have. And so 423 applicants for January and February of all the condo sales. We had 2,100 sales in Greater Vancouver. So let's just say, you know, this is very simple math. It's far from perfect. But if you have 423 applicants and say, you know, those are part of the 2,100 sales, that would result in 20% of sales coming from these BC loan program buyers. So, you know, 423 of 2,100, that's about 20%. You know, the fact of the matter is the loan program, it offers up to $750,000. But the fact is, you know, those are almost all condo buyers. You know, even to get a townhouse in Greater Vancouver, you know, under 750 there's not a whole lot out there. So, you know, let's presume that majority of those people that are going to get approved are going to end up in the condo market. So you're really adding, again, that demand that just did not need it. So what you have, again, 423 applicants out of the 2,100 sales so far. You know, 50% of condos selling the multiple offers right now. We are seeing prices hitting new highs. I can give you a personal example. You know, just had a listing recently, a condo listing, you know, sort of at that entry level point, and I put it on at a price where I was expecting it to take about a month to sell. You know, we priced it at a point where my guys weren't going to let go of it unless they got it. And, you know, it was a high price. And, you know, anyways, got multiple offers in the basically first couple days. Way over asking price, and, you know, totally shocked not only myself, but my sellers as well. Again, this was a listing that I felt, you know, looking at the previous comps, that I felt was going to take minimum a month to sell if we're lucky. And, you know, it goes way over asking price in the first couple days. You know, only took a couple showings. And that's what we're seeing in the condo market. So again, there's gonna be much debate in terms of this, home ownership program that the BC government is subsidizing. Again, ultimately, if you are a first-time buyer and looking to get into the market, and you are financially prudent, and you are aware that in 5 years that comes on as a second mortgage, and then you're going to get hit with those payments. So you are going to be paying additional from what your mortgage is. So if you can actually budget for that, and you're not predicating, you're not speculating on home prices going up so that you can afford it, etc., and maybe take out a home equity line of credit to start paying for these payments, or whatever the case is. If you're actually smart, you can use the program to your benefit. However, with that being said, a lot of people don't do their homework. They're going to get caught up of it. They're not going to realize it's a second mortgage. They're not going to be prepared for the second amount of payments. And again, this program is completely predicated on home values going up. And so if there is any sort of decline, there's not going to be any equity in these properties. You have these over-leveraged buyers into the market, and again, they are subsidized by BC taxpayers. And which, of course, this has only added more demand into a market that straight up does not need it. So again, this is not a supply issue in the condo market. Again, we've had record builds in 2015 and 2016. They're coming. We've had more and more buildings completing, and yet inventory is lower. It's simply because people are not selling, and this is what happens in a very hot market, a speculative market. And then you have governments that are reactive versus proactive, so you have a detached market that starts to collapse, an upcoming election. So let's keep the ball rolling. Let's look like we're helping out first-time buyers. So let's give them more money. Let's get all of the leveraged people in, but it's essentially just pushing up prices even more and becoming even more unaffordable for these first-time buyers. So don't like the program, and we are seeing early effects of it. Again, I'm not going to say this entire condo market is hot because of the program, but again, anytime you add 423 potential more buyers into a market that does not need any more buyers, not going to help. So anyways, hope that helped, and talk to you soon.